Hey, family, welcome to the tribe. You're listening to another edition of A Tribe Called Family, or if you're watching this on YouTube, then you're watching another edition of A Tribe Called Family. I'm your host, Octavius Davis. Thank you so much for hanging out with me once again. We have a great guest who's going to be joining us today. Now, as you know, this month, this is what's called the month of love. Right? There's flowers, there's candy, there's cards, there's elaborate gifts and dinners, all to show the person that we're with that we love them, that we appreciate them. Well, usually during this month, the type of love that's focused on is more of like a romantic type of love. But today, we're going to talk about a different kind of love, storge. Now, storge is a Greek word, and this version of love is really referring to the type of love that you'll have for your family, those in your community, and wanting to see their well-being taken care of. Today's guest is storge in action because she has adopted 7, not 2, not even 1. She wanted to bring in 7 little ones into her home, and maybe some not so little, but we'll have a chance to find out more about that in just a moment.
Hey family, welcome to the tribe called family.
Nichole, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Excited to have you on the show. Of course, our paths have crossed numerous times over the past few years at different adoption day ceremonies and things of that nature, which we'll have a chance to jump into in just a moment. Before we get into that, we have to understand the foundation. We have to understand a little bit more about you. Nichole, where are you from?
I am originally from Tampa, born and raised for the most part. I did have the opportunity to live in Chicago and Dallas. As an adult, my career took me to different places and personal life took me to different places, which I absolutely loved. But ultimately, my grandparents and my family and my brother kind of brought me back to Tampa because I was traveling here so frequently and my grandparents were aging and with aging comes death and things like that. And so I just didn't want that to happen without me being nearby.
Now, you had an opportunity to spend some time in the Midwest. You don't know this, but I'm originally from the Midwest. I'm actually from Gary, Indiana, originally.
Oh, how cool! I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's not far at all from Chicago.
Not far at all. So, being there in Gary in the snow, and especially like back in the 80s when like Michael Jordan was drafted to the Bulls, it was insane. But I do have a quick question for you because you went from Midwest to Southwest. Now you're in Florida. Do you put sugar in your grits, Nichole? Do you even eat grits for that matter?
I do eat grits. I did not as a kid, but I love them now. And no, I do not put sugar in my grits.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into this edition of A Tribe Called Family. We're going to wrap this on up. She did not pass the grit quiz. No, I'm teasing with you. But you've had a chance to do quite a bit of traveling. But you mentioned earlier professionally that you work in the legal field.
Yes.
So what inspired you to get involved with law?
When I was like 8, I had to write a paper in school and they asked, it was like what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I wrote this essay about wanting to be the president. And then when I was like flowing into middle school, I had to write an essay trying to get into the International Baccalaureate program. And I kind of wrote about that again. And so I think I kind of was always following along that legal path in some way. As I grew up, I decided I really didn't want to be the president. But something along those lines, like being in the legal field would be great. And I considered going to law school and even took the LSAT and did all those things. But ultimately decided that I really wanted a family. And I wasn't sure I could work at the high caliber at a big law firm with a family and do both things really well.
Sure.
And so I decided that I could have that balance of family and doing my job really well as working as a paralegal. So that's what I ultimately decided to do. There are some powerhouse women that I know and love who are rocking and killing, being amazing attorneys and amazing mamas. I just wasn't sure I could personally do both.
Yeah, makes absolute sense. Makes absolute sense. Know thyself, to thy own self be true.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you mentioned about you wanting to have a family.
Yes.
And I opened up today's show talking about love and storge, and we have the shining example of storge on the show today. So no pressure, Nichole, as we continue on in the conversation, but let's talk about family. So you knew that you wanted to have a family. What type of family, before you started your family, what type of family did you foresee yourself building?
So I was definitely the little girl that was not dreaming of like one day my prince will come and marriage and all of those things. I really just always wanted a family, and I always wanted to be a mom. And I kind of thought in the beginning that like you had to be married and that's the way you had a family. And I quickly realized that's not the only way to have a family.
Yeah.
And very early on when I was younger, I have always been interested in adopting. I tried to convince my parents to adopt when I was like 10 or 11 years old. That didn't go so well, but I tried.
Hey, you had to put forth the effort.
Yeah. I tried to get them to do an exchange student program because I thought like maybe that would be something kind of similar, like bringing someone else into the home. I don't really know where that desire came from. I can't pinpoint anything very specifically. The only thing I've thought about kind of through my journey that might have planted that idea in my head is I was a huge Punky Brewster fan. And so
was Punky a foster child?
She was.
Wow. That memory, like that must be like a core memory deep down in my subconscious, because I used to watch Punky Brewster as a kid as well. And when you said that, I'm like, I think Punky Brewster was in foster care.
She was. And
wow.
So I started rewatching it because they did like a reboot where Punky was an adult. And I had a conversation with a friend, and I was like, I wonder if that's where that like idea planted subconsciously, because I can't point to it anywhere else. Now, did I understand what foster care was when I was like 6 and 7 watching Punky Brewster or however old I was? No. But I think somewhere it took hold in my brain and I understood it. So I always kind of thought, I wanted to adopt. And then, I always wanted that opportunity to birth a child on my own, for myself, but just one. All the rest of them I wanted adopted.
So you knew that from a young age.
Very young age.
You wanted to be knee deep into impacting kids in foster care.
Yeah. And I don't know that I connected it that early on that, adopting from foster care. I didn't know enough about that, right? So I just thought like adoption. I didn't understand that adoption could be through foster care. I thought it was private, very expensive kind of stuff. So I kind of tabled that though, because I absolutely did not become a foster parent to adopt. I became a guardian ad litem in a neighboring county about 8 years ago. And that really planted the seed of fostering. In the beginning of that journey, I had no desire to be a foster parent. And then I saw some of the situations that you do when you are engaged in the child welfare system.
Sure.
And this like little seed was planted, like I could do this better. Right? Because every child has different needs and every human can provide for different children in different ways. And if I'm being really honest, brutally honest, I saw some foster homes that I didn't love. Sure. And I just thought that I could do it better.
As a guardian ad litem, this is something that you noticed.
Yes. when you are advocating to have a child taken out of a foster home for various reasons, and I had to do that a couple of times. It was a little disheartening. And so I started to think like, maybe I could do this. And it took me a few years. I stayed in just being a guardian ad litem for a few years until I felt like I was ready to kind of take those next steps. But ultimately, it led me to fostering. And when you start fostering, you get asked kind of what your profile is going to be. And they want you to start thinking about what types of children or what ages or things like that. And so I had a very open profile. I still do. I'm 0 to 17, very open. My thought would be maybe a teenager who has a younger sibling, because sometimes, most oftentimes, they get split up.
Sure.
I thought that would be super cool, super fun. I could like listen to music with the teenager and watch cool movies. And they could hang out with their sibling. Yeah. I had all these crazy ideas. That went out the window halfway through my professional parenting classes that we take for fostering. Completely out the window. Because while you're in professional parenting classes, or there's different names for these classes in different areas, I was approached about a sibling set. And so my like whole world was kind of shook at that point because there were 3 of them. And I had considered 1, maybe 2. I am a single mom now. I was single then. I was doing this kind of on my own, which is freaking awesome. And I love and would never do it another way, honestly. I love making all my own choices, being able to follow my own instincts, my own gut, and not having to consult any other person, right? Sure. Not that I don't consult people, but that I don't have to. I get to make those choices for my kids with my children. I love it. Not easy, but I do love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was kind of approached about this sibling set, and I kind of had to make a decision kind of quickly. I felt like, and I was kind of thrown into it. Best decision of my life. Never change it. But yeah, now, that's kind of where it all.
Was this your very first placement?
Very first placement.
Oh, wow.
I was not even licensed yet.
Wow.
Not even licensed yet. We have normalcy laws here in Florida. And so ultimately I did a normalcy visit with 2 of the the older siblings of the sibling set. Before I was fully licensed, I was done with everything. Backgrounds were done, all that stuff. Kind of just waiting on like the final stamp of approval.
Yep.
So we did those normalcy visits, and I found out I was licensed while I was sitting in the courtroom regarding these children's case, and found out they were like moving in that weekend. So like Thursday to like a Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm. So let's pause right there for a moment, because you just gave us a lot of great meat about your journey. So I want to take a moment to rewind, because around 10-ish, you mentioned that a seed was planted from somewhere. We think it may have been Punky. We think Punky planted the seed, right?
I think so.
Get involved with making an impact through foster care. But then you grow, you get into your career, you're operating as a guardian ad litem, and another seed is planted because you see some of these homes and situations and stories that these kids are being exposed to. And you say to yourself, I think I can do that better.
Absolutely.
I think I can do that better. And so from 10 years old to this point in your life, 2 different times where, honestly, I think Punky planted the seed. Your guardian ad litem experience was watering the seed. And now here it is. You've gone through your classes. You're not even licensed yet, but you're in the courtroom and you're hearing about a sibling set that needs a safe, loving, stable home. in that moment is when you realize that your license has been approved and it's your very first placement. So,
Yes.
what was day one like? Which between Thursday to Saturday was maybe like a 48-hour turnaround before they were at your front door. So, what
Yeah.
was day one like when these kids came to your home?
So I was a little bit lucky because I had that normalcy visit the weekend before that Thursday court hearing. So I had a chance to meet them, spend some time with them. They knew that they would be moving. I knew that they would be moving. We just didn't really know when. So I spent that week preparing, painting walls in my house, getting things for their bedroom that they specifically asked for, because rooms were set up, but it was really important to me that it became their own. And I had some amazing friends that stepped in and painted walls and washed my dishes and just kind of helped me like prepare my house. Brought
Gotta love the
gifts.
tribe.
Yeah. Yes. And brought gifts to my house. And so these kiddos get here and they walk in for the second time, but moving in, they walk into presents, welcome presents. And I kind of had a plan. So I got to spend some time with them by myself, just me and them, with the plan of one of my close friends and my parents meeting us for lunch after the kids got settled for a couple of hours. I utilized some resources like foster closets and had a meeting set up with one of them so the kids could go pick out bikes, because I live in a very family-friendly neighborhood. So we went to lunch. They went and picked out some brand new bikes, and we rode bikes and ate at McDonald's.
Oh, I'm sure they loved it. What was the age range of the siblings?
So they were 5. The two of them that came at that time were 5 and 7 at that time. They also have had a 2.5-year-old brother who is in another foster placement, who was supposed to move in short order. And that turned into a whole other situation. And it took approximately 6 months and lots of court hearings and lots of stress to reunite these siblings together.
Wow. So day one, they get bicycles, McDonald's. They walk into rooms that are freshly painted. You used a term because you said that when they walked into your home for the second time, because the week before that, there was a normalcy visit. Share with our listeners what a normalcy visit is.
So a normalcy visit is a visit where the children can come into the home, meet you, see the home, see the animals, kind of get their footing and kind of get to know you a little bit and bring some comfort level to them, because their whole life is changing. And I, as an adult, can totally process that.
Sure.
My prefrontal lobe and cortex and all those things are fully developed. 5 and 7-year-olds are not. And especially not a 5 and 7-year-old, like so many of kids, have lots of obstacles that have presented themselves before they've ever even entered this world. And so it was really just for them to get to know me and see if they were comfortable, and for me to get to know them and really just make sure it was the right move and the right fit for all of us.
I love that, because I think one of the perceptions that some people may have when it comes to becoming a foster or an adoptive parent, they're thinking about it from their position as an interested foster or adoptive parent, right? Well, I want a child to be placed with me, etc. But it's important for listeners to understand the children have a voice. They have a say. It is extremely important to understand that we are looking for adults for the children. We're not looking for children for the adults. Because with that normalcy visit, hypothetically speaking, if the young people had expressed to their case manager that they weren't comfortable with their visit, how would that visit had gone on the back end when they left?
Oh, I mean, that could have potentially the move could never have happened, number one. Or they could have put things in place where maybe the move slowed down and we had some more visits and some more conversations, and maybe they got a counselor involved, or maybe it just wasn't the right fit.
Maybe
And
it
so
wasn't
then
the
you
right fit.
look for the right fit, because you are looking for adults for these children and caregivers and parents, not the other way around.
Oh, yeah, that's such a key point to highlight, because as you know, with this show, we seek to educate the community, but also break down stereotypes and myths that are associated with child welfare. So let's take it a step further. You just shared with us your very first placement, but how many placements did you have before you said, you know what? I want to up the ante a little bit. I'm ready to become an adoptive parent.
So, I started this journey. I'm in I'm moving into my 5th year of this, and it was 2020,
Mm.
and
So
we are
during the
actually.
COVID years.
Oh yeah.
Now, was this
So
before or during COVID when you said, you know what, I think adoption is the way I want to go?
So I think right from the beginning, I knew when those 2 kiddos moved in, they were moving in as adoptive placements. So
Mm.
even though I started my journey as fostering and that was my intent, I knew that when I said yes and when they said yes, we were saying yes to adoption.
Wow.
So I pivoted very quickly with not only with them, but with their brother too. And who did ultimately come here, and he's adopted, and all these 3 siblings are together, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's what you hope for. Because they were separated. They were together and then they were separate, and now they get to be together forever.
Yeah.
And I'm incredibly close to my brother, so I know how important that sibling relationship is. And so, it was actually January when I started this journey, the end of January. So we're real close to this 5-year mark.
Mm-hmm.
And, COVID shut down the world our spring break week. So like mid-March
Yep.
of 2020. Now, while I was working on getting their brother here, I was still open to fostering because I didn't know what I was doing. Not really, right?
Right.
I was like, I can do this. This is great.
Yep.
And so I got a phone call from licensing, and there was a baby who was coming out of a discharge from the hospital with a respiratory illness, upper respiratory illness. This is before COVID really was was shutting us down, right? This was like mid to end of February. So I got a call, and they were like, hey, there's some medical issues going on with this child. We're really struggling to find a placement. These are the things that are happening. Do you think you can help? And they list off the medical things and they tell me, and I'm like, oh, yes, I can do that. No big deal. So baby girl comes to the house as a foster placement. And I have her and realize she needs higher level of care. And so now it's this like journey and advocacy of getting her the higher level of care that she needs, all of the medical care that she needs, all of the specialists she needs to see, which becomes challenging because now our hospitals and our doctors' offices are putting all of these measures in place.
on top of the three siblings who are with you at this point as well.
2 siblings. The third one hasn't moved in yet. The third one doesn't get to
Got
move
it.
in until the summertime, approximately. However, the judge does order that the sibling come for a week-long visit during spring break. So I thought spring break was going to be amazing. I rented a huge house in Orlando, bought Disney tickets for all the parks, for all the kids, my brother, my sister, my parents, my nephew. We were going to have the best spring break ever.
I know where this is going.
And 2 days before we leave, Disney announces that they're shutting down because of COVID. And I was devastated, and I totally cried about the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
there's a lot of effort that you put into that, making that
Yes.
memorable experience for the family.
Yes, right? Like, so you want to infuse these positive experiences to overcome the adverse experiences or
Yes.
their ACEs. So you just want to infuse these positive things. And so they didn't know that we were going. Thank God. I had decided to keep it a secret. We pivoted quickly, went to Target before they like shut everything down, before everybody else went there, bought like kiddie pools, games, Twister, all kinds of stuff. And my parents and my sister-in-law and my brother and my nephew all came and stayed at my house. So my house was now the spring break house for the week.
Nice.
And we did as best we could, and we made it as fun as we could with little kiddie pools in the backyard and playing games all day and kind of just letting them do whatever, hanging out, playing outside.
Be kids. Yeah.
Yes. And so their brother got to be here and experience that. So that was super fun. So that means there was 4 kids.
Listener, if you're tracking there, that is now 4 kids. The 2 initial placements, the little one that came from the hospital, and the judge allowed the brother of the 2 siblings from the initial placement to come during spring break.
Yep. Plus my nephew. So 5 kids in the home.
You did not know what you were doing. Yeah, you were way in. Deep in.
Yeah, so deep. But at that point, my parents were here, my brother, my sister-in-law, right? So there's like 5 kids and 5 adults. So we're like evenly matched at that point. Yeah. So we kind of, move forward. Schools are shutting down. So now we're homeschooling. And my mom is coming to my house every day to help homeschool the kids because I'm still going to work because my office hasn't shut down. Not really, right? Like we're still going into the office. That quickly comes where now we're all working from home. It's no longer safe. But I'm working from home while they're doing school from here. It was pure chaos, and I'm not sure how we survived.
Wow.
So in the midst of that, I had a preteen placement come in. I had a teen placement come in who I ultimately adopted later on, but he kind of came short-term, left. It took a while before he came back. Had to buy a new car because I realized my Camry wasn't going to cut it. So, lots of crazy things happened during COVID that I wasn't expecting to happen in the early days of COVID.
Wow. So you had an opportunity to literally in 2020, was 2019 or 2020 when the siblings first came with you?
2020.
So all of this happened in 2020. Your introduction to fostering was literally a trial by fire because the world was burning with COVID and you had to figure it out on the fly.
Yes.
And so you eventually make a transition because you kind of, showed your hand a little bit ago in regards to adoption. But what then transitioned where you made the decision to become an adoptive parent? Because if I heard correctly, the siblings from your initial placement, they came into your home with the understanding that you were going to adopt them.
Yes.
So lead us down that road because you've adopted 7.
Yeah.
So, so lead us down the journey from 2020 when the siblings were first placed with you to the actual adoption finalization. How much time lapsed in between there?
A year and a half for the adoption.
Okay.
Um, is that right? Yeah, a year and a half. So July of 2021 is when the siblings were adopted. So the two siblings came, the third one ultimately came, moved in June of 2020. So just kind of right after his third birthday.
Yep.
And then it was July of the following year. And there's lots of things that have to happen when you're adopting siblings. There was a lot of legal things that were occurring with another foster parent. And so when two different placements are willing to adopt, there are proceedings that occur. And so those kinds of things were going on in the background, which is why it took a year. And, it was just meant to be that way.
Sure.
We got to be the first in-person adoption since COVID. And I am forever grateful for the judge that we had. And he has presided over every adoption I've had in Pasco by my request.
That's pretty cool.
So cool. He's retiring this March, and I'm so sad about it. But I did just get to see him when I spoke at National Adoption Day recently. Right. So that was pretty cool. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, Octavius.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'll jump in with another question. That's fine. So you've adopted 7 children. Why? What's your why? Why 7?
I don't think I ever intended, I never had a number in mind. I never did. It's just the way it was always planned. It was the way God made it, I believe. And so I didn't have this plan. I didn't have a plan to adopt 3 siblings. I didn't have a plan to ultimately adopt the teenager who's now an adult. I didn't have a plan to adopt baby girl who came in 2020 and, left, went to a medical home, was reunified, and ultimately came home. Did I advocate for them? 1,000%.
Sure.
Or the baby that came, he was 6 months old and he's 4 now. I thought he was going to go to his family in West Virginia. Yeah. That was the plan, right? Like that was the plan. And that wasn't the way it was supposed to be. And so when they're here with you and they're growing with you, you know when they're supposed to be part of your family.
Yeah.
I can't describe it. It's just a feeling. Because while I've adopted 7, I've had over 30 placements in my home. I've had other sibling sets in my home. So you just know when they're supposed to be a part of you and when you're advocating and when they've become family with each other and siblings, and we are. And I experienced some hard things a couple of years ago in 2022, I guess. And so I kind of wasn't sure where I was at in my fostering journey. I always know that I always want to foster. I don't see a time in my life, a place in the future that doesn't have a place. But I wasn't sure what that looked like. And a good friend was like, maybe a baby. Like, I wasn't the foster parent that was like, I want the baby. Right, I really enjoy like the older kids and the teenagers. They're super fun, super hard, but super fun also.
Yep.
And so, and everybody has their place, but that just wasn't me. And so ultimately there was a newborn that needed placement. And again, I thought she was going to family.
Wow.
We were just kind of waiting for this family member to be approved to take her. So I was like, I'll just snuggle on this beautiful little baby girl for, a few weeks, and that'll be it. That's not what happened.
Mm.
I have a really good relationship with her bio family, including her bio parents. She's 2 now, and we're still very connected. We just saw her biological mom on New Year's Eve and did a visit. And so it just so happened to be that way.
Sure.
Something I think that's really important when you are adopting is if you can keep bio connections in whatever way they look like. It is so important. All of my kids have a biological connection in some way, shape, or form. And if it can be safe with their parents, it is.
Now, if we could, let's go a layer deeper with that, because you said keeping that connection to the bio family or parent is so important. First question is, so important for whom?
It's important for the child. It's absolutely important for them. They're going to have questions when they get older.
Yeah.
They deserve to have those questions answered. So I do lots of things to keep that in play and keep that in mind. I save all of their original birth certificates with their biological parents and families' names on them and their given names. Some of my children have chosen to change their names at adoption. The older ones had a say in it, so they asked for them to be changed, or asked for parts of their name to be changed. But I really think it's important that they have that birth certificate with that information on it if they so choose. And really just keeping connection. Some of them have siblings that are in other places and adopted in other places, or maybe they have a different dad, so they're with their biological father, and maybe their siblings are with me.
I think it's so cool that you have purposefully and intentionally sought to build those connections with the bio family for the benefit of the child, because, for someone who may be considering adopting or considering fostering, I often say this on the show, so I want to reiterate: foster to adopt, that's not a thing. That's not the approach that you want to go into this with. Now, granted, you heard Nichole share that she knew with her first placement that was going to lead to adoption. That's not a foster to adopt situation. No. Every situation is different, but for the listener, please know, foster to adopt, that is not how this thing works. However,
absolutely not. That just happened to be this unique situation, but it was a unique situation.
Unique situation, absolutely. So for someone who may say, well, I want to adopt, but I want to shield the children from the biological family. I don't want them to know or have any dealings with them. I want to just kind of shield that connection or sever that connection, however you may want to look at it. What are some of the cons? What's the downside to taking that type of approach?
You are detrimentally affecting their psyche. We know from studies and science, people want to know where they came from. Yeah. They want to know biology. They want to know, they need to know, whatever it is. And when you are withholding that, especially from a child's perspective, you, the now adopted parent, are going to be viewed as the person who has withheld that. And you are now fostering potential resentment and severing the relationship that you have built with your child. There is a place for everyone in this picture.
Sure.
My rule for biological parent connections are safe and clean at the time of the visitation. I don't care what you have done before, the day before. I don't care what you do immediately after you leave. When you are setting up the visitation, you need to demonstrate safety and healthiness. And you have to demonstrate that during the visitation. And if you don't, I am very clear in saying, I will cancel this. We will move on. And if something has occurred with you with no judgment from me, politely ask me to reschedule.
Yeah.
And I will ask no questions. That's it.
Yeah.
But you have to demonstrate safety, because I can't put my children at risk in those moments. But if you can show me that you're clean and you're safe and you just want to be around, totally happy to do that.
Yeah.
Totally happy to do that. I will tell you, this week, I am meeting with my baby, with her great grandparents, her siblings, her grandparents, her cousins. It's a whole thing. We're getting together.
Wow.
And we did it last year, and we hadn't done it in a while. And I was like, hey, do you guys want to do this? And so we got it on the books and got it scheduled. It's important for them. It's important. And, she's 2. Is she going to remember it? Nope. But I will have pictures. It will exist, and I can tell her about it.
And I imagine it's important for the bio family as well. Despite what led up to, the child being removed and now, adopted or what have you, it's still important for them to know and understand that little one is okay.
Absolutely.
They're being loved, they're growing, they're thriving. So, well, kudos to you for building those connections with the bio family. So, Nichole, we're close to time.
All right.
So, if someone is listening to this right now and they've been considering fostering, they've been thinking about adoption, but they've been on the fence about whether they want to move forward, what's the one thing that you would share with them to encourage them to move forward?
Every child deserves love and someone who's going to be in their corner. And they're already walking a really hard path. And as an adult, you can handle the hard things, and they shouldn't have to. I can handle the burden. It's not easy, but I can handle the burden. And they shouldn't have to. So if I can lessen their burden for a day, for an hour, for a week, I feel like it's my responsibility in my community to do what I can to put that out there and to put that love out there and to talk to other people about it and encourage others to do the same thing. A lot of times people say like, oh, I'm just going to love them too much. I can't let them go.
Right.
And I thought the same thing, but they need that love. Every single placement that has left my home, I cry. They could have been here for 5 hours because they came in the middle of the night. It doesn't matter. But I know that for those moments, they felt safety, they felt security, and their brain is going to remember that. That seed of safety is planted. And so for some, I've been able to do that for months or years or a lifetime. And for some, I've been able to do that for a few hours or for a few days. But it is important to do that for our community. And there are so many ways that you can be a part of this community. If you can't foster or adopt, you can support adoption, adoptive families or foster families. You can donate your items to foster closets because those come to foster families. You can get involved in your church programs that have support for foster families. There's just so many ways. You could do respite. You could sign up just to do respite for adoptive and foster families who might need a break.
Right, absolutely.
There are just so many ways that you can support this community. And it is the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. And it is the most rewarding thing that I will ever do in my life.
That was perfectly said. And now you know why I said our guest today is Storge in action, because just the many different ways that she shared by which you can get involved, which are 100% spot on. If you want to make a difference but don't know how, go to our website, get more information, come to an information meeting, or just see if you can volunteer. Just get involved some sort of way. And before you know it, that love will start rubbing up on you, and you'll be ready to start rubbing love on other people as well to make a difference, a positive impact in the lives of children right here in our community. Nichole, thank you so much for hanging out with us today on A Tribe Called Family.